Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the emPOWERUP podcast. I'm Jeremy Boren, brand manager at GrayMatter, and today we have a special guest. It's Carson Drake, the co-founder and vice president of manufacturing industries for GrayMatter. He's joined us today in our conference room location on what I think is the nicest day of the year so far.
It's been beautiful, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's like 80 degrees, and I think it was snowing, 2 days ago or something, so it's finally spring.
Yep.
It's really nice. But I wanted to have Carson on the podcast to talk about a couple of different things. One of the things is about just founding GrayMatter, how you got started, but also about this really cool Digital Disruptors speaker series that we have. It's going to be starting next week. We're kicking things off in Pittsburgh, but then going all over the country, all over the Midwest. I know you're going to be at a lot of them, meeting with customers and just talking about Industry 4.0, unraveling some of the mysteries there, answering a lot of the misconceptions, and kind of like helping people find their way through the forest of options, that are out there. So those are kind of some of the topics that I want to talk today. And just to set listeners up, April 25th is the Pittsburgh Digital Disruptors, then it will be in Houston on April 30th. Minneapolis on May 1st, Chicago on May 2nd, Dallas on May 6th, Cleveland on May 15th, Detroit is May 16th, and then I have to mention, because today's the first big early bird registration day for our annual Transform User Conference, July 30th through August 1st at Put-in-Bay, Ohio. So I think we're already getting some signups on that.
Yeah, it's an action-packed agenda, isn't it?
I'm excited about it. Yeah. So just to start out, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and just a little bit how you started with GrayMatter, where how you got into the industry and how you started with the company back in the early 90s?
Sure. Yeah, and it's interesting that we're doing this Disruptor series rounds, because that's really how GrayMatter got started. Jim and I met prior to GrayMatter Systems at a little company, and this was prior to personal computers hitting the plant floor, and we were putting in control systems that were based on big iron. It was ModComp and DECVAXes and parallel I/O coming out and interfacing to all the sensors and control systems and stuff, and then you programmed them in on green terminals, and prior to the PC. And me and Jim worked together for a few years, and I was lucky to have met Jim early on in my career, and we had our dream early on in our careers, and we saw this PC coming as a disruptive technology and really founded our lives based on that, and kind of bet the house literally on it and started GrayMatter in my basement. And first systems that we were putting in were DOS-based systems, and then Windows hit, and we enjoyed the heyday of SCADA back then, and that's still about a third of our business today. And then kind of went through that for the 90s and into the late 90s, and then companies started to ask for software above that supervisory control layer and below the ERP, because there were still mainframes there. There was IBM RISC computers and DECVAXes, and doing things like quality and really the business of a manufacturing plant. And so we saw that as another disruptive technology, and it was shrink-wrapped manufacturing execution systems based on off-the-shelf commercially available relational databases. So that was a second disruptor that we saw in our career, and we jumped on that. We've put in almost 600 plants worth of systems there, which is pretty big in the MES space.
Yeah,
it's a lot of experience there rolled in, and then the next disruptor, and we're going to talk about this in our Disruptive Series seminars, was the late 2007, 2008, and then into 2010, Apple hit, and there was iPhones and iPads coming, and people wanted to go mobile, and suddenly, all of a sudden, people wanted to start Googling their assets. And so we created a third leg of GrayMatter, which is asset management performance as a service, and started figuring out how to take data that we collected for years, and instead of looking at the past, use that data to predict the future. So predictive analytics, condition-based monitoring, fleet management of like machines, that kind of thing. And so what we're going to be talking about in this round of disruption is how does the cloud affect things, digital threads, digital twins. There's a lot of hype out there in Industry 4.0. We're going to help customers separate the hype from reality.
Mm-hmm.
So really looking forward to that. It's a busy schedule. We've got a lot of cities and action-packed agenda. There's a lot of people signing up, and really looking forward to getting out there and sharing what we've learned over our 27 years of doing this, at least give you our take on it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
it's interesting when you talk about Apple. I mean, they created a whole new aesthetic, but also like a whole new opportunity for companies like ours, to give that functionality, to people to be able to like interrogate their own processes and data streams. Could you talk about that a little bit? I mean, is that just... did it really come out of that space of of the iPhone and just wanting people like assuming that functionality should be built into something like an industrial system, much the same as it is with a consumer system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it was the millennials arrived also with that iPhone, and prior to that, going all the way back to the mid '90s, there was a week-long training class on these systems, and now these days you get an iPhone. Have you ever been to a training class on an iPhone?
No.
There isn't one. There isn't one. It trains yourself, and so that's the paradigm today. People going forward, the user interfaces need to be intuitive. They need to be easy to use. They need to train themselves, and because of that. I don't know if you've talked about this yet or not in your iPod. In your podcast, thank you, is the ISA 101 standard. We're fortunate enough to have John Bennett's on our team, who is a chair author of ISA 101, and what we call it is high performance graphics. And so what we're doing is we're going back to the paradigm of the 90s and 2000s on these user interfaces on the plant floor, and instead of making them technical like a P&ID drawing and jamming every single square inch of information on that screen and hundreds of tags, and just we have propellers moving, we have flames in a furnace flaming, and it's not intuitive. It's not like an iPhone, it's not like an iPad, certainly not mobile capable. So we're going back and redoing those screens and updating them without having to throw away that technology. We're making them high performance, and they're more exception based, so they look like, probably the analogy is like a dashboard in your car. Instead of all that data that's in an engine flooding you and distracting you and being difficult to understand, you only get served based on exception when the engine light comes on, and it tells you what to go look at in a much more modern way. So that's what we're doing with ISA 101.
Right.
And that's really a combination of the Apple technology, the mobile iPads, the new standard for ISA 101, and training yourselves, not having to go through complex training.